Hi everyone, Salesforce Development Day 39. So we started yesterday test classes and we will continue the test classes today also. So let's see yesterday we have seen the test classes, writing the two test classes. So today we will see different, for the different one, how to write a test classes. For example, let's take a scenario for the trigger. If I have a trigger, that means I need to prepare a test class for the trigger. We have a trigger called auto converts leads. We have a trigger called which we have written auto convert. We have written the trigger which is called auto convert, auto lead convert. Right? So this is the trigger which is there. From this trigger, we are calling the handler. In the handler, we have written the logic. We have written the logic here. So right now, if I open this trigger in the UI, now auto lead convert, let's click on a refresh. So both will be having a 0% because right now there is nothing is there. So what I'm going to do is, one of the use case scenario is, I'll prepare a test class for the trigger which auto converts the lead as a customer upon updating the status as a closed converted. That means I need to implement a test classes, like I need to create a lead and convert the lead to the status to the closed converted. Then the actual trigger gets executed. Now, before writing the test class in the real time, before writing the test classes, what we do is we always check what is the logic exist in the class. What is the logic exist in the class? The first thing is that I need to pass the lead list. I need to pass the lead list. Based on that, and also it is going to check is my status is closed converted. Now here I need to pass the lead list. That means whenever I'm executing this class, whenever I'm executing this class from the test class, that means from the test class, whenever I execute it, I need to create a records in the test class. I need to create a records in the test class. At least one record I need to create it, because here it has a lead. If I do not have any lead, this entire logic will not cover. In my test class, this entire logic will not cover. If I want my logic to be covered by the test classes, then I need to pass the parameter called lead list. So that means I need to pass the at least one lead. I need to pass it to the trigger. From the trigger, it goes to the lead handler. So what I'll do is I'll implement a test class for this trigger. Now let's create a new file, new Apex class. I'll say here auto lead convert test. Auto lead convert test. Now for the test classes, we will write an annotation @istest. @istest. Now right now I'm writing a test class for the trigger. Now for the trigger also same pattern. Within the class, we need to use a method test method. So that means static test method void. Then I can write here test. Let's say test convert. This is my method. Now within the method, this trigger gets executed whenever the lead is created or updated. This trigger is automatically executed whenever the lead is created or updated. That means I need to create a lead here. I need to create a lead. So the first thing is I need to create a lead. So let's go ahead and create a lead in the test class. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement a lead. Let's say lead record equal to new lead. new lead. Right now I'm going to create a only single record. So how can we create it? So I need to take this object name or an instance name. And here we have a first name equal to, let's say it is a test. Let's say it is a test. But one thing here, if I am creating a lead inside the test class, that record will not be created in Salesforce. Whenever I'm creating a new record from the Whenever I'm creating a new record from the test classes, those records will not be created in the UI. In the UI, those records will not be created. So let's go to the UI. Now let's see here, lead tab. So let's go to the lead. So in the lead, if you click on all open leads, so I have a 50 plus items. That means total. How can I verify how many records I have at the lead level? Let's go to the query editor. Now let's say here, select count of ID from lead. Let's execute this. So this will give me the count. So I have a total 276 records are there. Now what I'm going to do, I'm creating a one record from the test class. Whenever we create a record from the test class, those records are not inserted inside the lead object. That is just for a temporary purpose. These records are whatever the records that we are creating in the test class, those are for the temporary. Till the test class gets executed, till that point, this record will be there. Once the test class execution is done, then it will delete those records from the temporary. Those records will be deleted from the temporary. So let's say here lead record. Let's assume company. The company is testing. Right? Let's give one. Now here, then we have a lead record. What else we have? We have a title equal to, let's say that I'm giving a title as a sales head. Sales head. And then we have a record dot. Then we have a phone number equal to some number I'm giving here. Similarly, we have a fax. Some number I'm providing here. Also, we have a rating on the lead record. Let's say hot. And what else? We have industry, not the individual ID. It's an industry. Industry is checklist. Let's take it as a banking. Right now. Annual revenue. Annual revenue. Let's take some number here. Some number. Now that's all. I think I have a status. Status we need to keep it. Because my logic here, it will check if the status is closed, converted, then this lead gets converted to the opportunity. Leads gets converted to the opportunity. So initially when I'm creating the record, I'll create the lead record with the status called lead record with the status called, let's say, open not contacted. Open not contacted. Open not contacted. Then we have a city. Let's take it as a Hyderabad. These are the information I'm creating it inside the test class. Then I'll insert it. I'll insert the record. Now I'll insert the record. What is happening? Status. Now, right now I'm inserting the single record. For triggers, we need not to call the trigger from the test class. We need not to call trigger from the test classes. That means triggers are always executed whenever the record is created or whenever the record is inserted or updated, automatically trigger gets executed. That means from the test class also, we need to test it by creating the record. By creating the record, I need to test it. Now, I need not to call this trigger from the test classes. So this is my logic. This is my logic in the test class. Now, observe here, in the trigger, I have a custom setting. I have a custom setting. For now, I'm going to comment out this custom setting. I'm going to comment out this custom settings. Click on save. Click on save. Now I'll execute the test class here. Go to this and run tests. When I click on a run test, now here it is completed. But how much it is completed? The trigger auto lead convert. Auto lead convert. 75% it is completed. Why 75%? Because after update we did not cover. After update we did not cover. And similarly, lead handler. If I go to the lead handler, click on this, only 6% it is covered. Only 6% it is covered, that is after insert. Whatever the after update is there, it did not cover it. So what I'll do is, after the inserting it, now we are going to update the record. Update the lead record. What I'm going to update, let's say that I'm going to update the lead record dot status equal to, I'm going to update it as a closed converted. Closed converted. Now click on a save here. Now let's execute. Now it is running. Now, right now, still it is 75%. Why it is 75%? After update, I did not do update. Okay.
After that update.
Yes. So let's do the update. Update lead record. Now let's execute it. Run test. Now here, all the lines got covered and total 100% into the auto lead convert. It is converted all the lines. Now similarly, if I go to the lead handler, if I go to the lead handler, it is also covered 100%. It is also covered 100%. That means whenever I'm writing the test class for the trigger, we should not be calling the trigger here. Like till yesterday, what we have done, we were calling the class dot a method name, right? So in order to cover the test classes, but for the triggers, you need not to call specifically the trigger here. It will be automatically executed once your record is created or updated based on the events that I have here. Based on the events that I have here. Now, this is covered the 100%. Now, we have a something called here custom setting. Custom setting is available. Now, in this custom setting, that means what I'm checking here in the custom setting. Let's go to the custom settings. Now, here, custom. We have a custom settings. Now, in the custom setting, we have created a list object, which is called as a trigger. In this trigger object, we have a one field called is active. This is a custom field. Now let's click on a manage. When I click on a manage, now I can see there are few records which are available. So the first one is a auto lead convert. Now auto lead convert is active equal to false. That means don't run this. So here, this is the options are available. Now what I'm saying here, if it is active, then only execute it. If it is not active, do not execute. Now that's what we have written. So basically we have implemented a custom setting to turn off the trigger and turn on the trigger in the production. This is how we do it. Now, if I enable this custom setting, now if I try to execute this, it will fail. When I try to execute this, it will fail. Why it will fail? Because the starting point, it says that trigger get instance, trigger dot get instance. It will not take the data from the custom setting. Now test class does not go to the custom setting and then get me the details. No, it will not do. It will not do. Now one way is, what you can do is, you need to create a even custom setting record also in the test class. That means here in the custom setting, you have a record here. Auto lead convert is the record. This is the record. Now, similarly, when you are executing the test class, you need to create a record in custom setting in the test class. That means here, before creating a lead, so what I'll do is I'll create a custom setting. Custom settings. Now here we have a custom setting name is called trigger __ C. Let's say TR equal to new trigger __ C. So I have initialized the object here. Now once I have initialized it, now we have two fields in this custom setting. One is a standard, one which is called as a tr.name. tr.name equal to, I'll say here, it has to be same name. It has to be same name that we are looking at here. So auto lead convert. So I'll say here auto lead convert, and then tr dot, we have a tr dot, we have a is active equal to, I'll say true.
Is that name and is active are the fields in trigger custom settings?
It's in custom setting. So go to the custom setting. Now here, this is the custom settings. So in the custom setting, by default name will be there. This is the is active is the custom field. Now when you click on the manage, and if you click on a new, what are the fields it displays? Name and is active. So that's what I'm giving the data here. That's what I'm giving the data. Once this data is created, what I'll do is I'll insert the record. Now let's go ahead and save this. Trigger __ C. Let's click on save. Now what is happening? Creating the custom setting, creating a record in trigger custom settings. Trigger custom setting. Now I'll save this, and then I'll try to execute this record. I'll try to execute this test class. When I execute this, now here it is giving me the total. It covered the total 100%. Account lead cover is 100% and number of lines is 6. Before it was a 4. Before it was 4. Now it is covered the 6 lines, and even lead handler, whatever the method it is calling, it is covered everything. So basically in the test class, whatever the data you are creating here, this created data, it will execute line by line. And once it reach here, after update, it will go inside only for after update. Now, then once it is inserted, then it will call this class. It will go to the class and it will cross verify after insert. There is nothing is there. Similarly, after update, it will execute it and it is we are passing the data from the test class. So it will take that data and is converted equal to false, and we have a on the update closed converted, which is equal to the status master label. Now, if it is true, then what we are doing is we are converting the lead to the opportunity, right? So that's what we are doing it. Now, these are the steps which we have to do. Trigger is basically whenever you are implementing a test class for trigger, you should not be calling the trigger inside it. You should be directly either create a record or update a record or delete a record. Right? These are the actions. If you do it, automatically the trigger gets executed by default. That's for the trigger. Now, if I go back to the Apex classes, let's go to the Apex classes here. In the Apex classes, click on the Apex classes. Now, if you click on estimate your organization code coverage, it is saying that 14%. Like this, whatever the classes we have, like this, whatever the classes we have, for every class, at least 1% should be covered. At least 1% of the code coverage should be there. That means it will take a overall, it has to go to the 75%. Just a second. Okay, so every class should be covered as at least 1%. So like this, right now, yesterday it was a 2% or a 4% was there. Now it is increased to because we have written yesterday for two classes, we have written the test classes. And today for the trigger, we have written from the trigger, it is also getting executed the handler class, which is the Apex class. So overall, it went to the 14%. So like this, you have to, as a developer, you have to bring it to the 75%. You have to bring it to the 75%. So that is how we write a test class for the trigger. Now, let's take another one, which is called as a batch class. For batch class, how do we write it? For batch class, how do we write it? Now, let's take one example. Now we have for the batch class, let's see what we have. Edit, search in files. So these are the batchable classes. For example, let's go to the calculate total revenue. Calculate total revenue. So for this is the one of the batch class which we have written long back. Now here what we are doing is we are calculating the total revenue on lead object. Lead object, we are calculating the total value. Now here start method is querying the lead record. And in the execute method, what we are doing is we are updating the total annual revenue. And then finally, I'm sending an email. To a person. Now here messaging utility is another class. Now open this class. In this class, I have a send email method. And it is what it is doing. It is basically getting the to address and display name subject, and then finally we are sending an email to this particular person. This particular person, we are sending an email. Now this is the logic which is written in the calculate total revenue batch class. Now for this, how can we implement a batch class? For this, how can we implement a batch class? Now let's go ahead and implement the batch class. File, new Apex class. Let me copy this batch class name. File, new Apex class, the batch class name, and then test. Now on top, I have to write @keys test. And then we have to use the static test method void test batch. Now this is the method. Now what I need in order to cover the in order to cover this logic, basically I need to create a lead in the test class, because we are querying the lead record where annual revenue is not equal to null, where the annual revenue is not equal to null. So that means I need to create a lead record. I need to create a lead record. Now what I'll do is I'll implement another method separately for the lead creation. I'll implement separate method for the creating the data. That means I'm creating the test data for lead, test data preparation for lead. So in order to create a test data, I'm going to create another method, public static void. Then let's say that I'm creating a new lead record. New lead record. Now within the method, now I need to create a lead record. Let's assume that I'm going to create 100 lead records. Whenever we are writing the test classes, we should always test the creating a records more than one. That means bulk records we have to test it. Bulk we have to test. The testing of the any of the batch class or could be a trigger, we always have to use the insert the bulk records. If it is working fine for the bulk records, then it should work perfectly fine during the real-time scenario. Now what I'll do is, in order to create a multiple records, I go into the loop integer counter equal to 1. I'll start from the counter 1. Then I'll go to the counter, which is let's create 100 records. And then we'll keep on increasing the counter. Now within this, I'm going to create a lead records. Now let me copy the one which I have created already. Auto lead. So this is the test class. Here we have a lead record set we have created. So I'm going to copy this. And within this, I'm going to change the, okay, I'm going to insert this. I'm going to insert. So I'm creating 100 records. I'm creating 100 record. Let's say here space less counter. That means test 1, test 2, test 3, like this, it should be creating the data. Now like this 100 records, I'm creating it. Like this 100 records, I'm creating it. Now we should not be doing the DML operation within the for loop. We should not be doing the DML operation within the for loop. So I'll take out this. Now what I'll do is I'll create a collection here, which is a list collection, list of a lead. Let's assume that lead list equal to new list of a lead. New list of a lead. What I'll do is lead list dot add dot add, then I'm going to pass this data to the list collection. Now, once I come out of the for loop, I'll cross check if my list is not empty. If my list is not empty. If my list is not empty, then what I'm going to do is I'll insert record. I'll insert not the lead. It has to be lead list. Insert the record. Now this method is specifically to create a multiple lead records. Now what I'll do is I'll call this method from the static test method. From the test method, I'll directly call here. I'll call the test method. That means this is creating the lead record. Once the lead record is created, next I need to call the batch class. I need to call the batch class. That means call the batch class. In order to call the batch class, we use the batch class name. And let's create the object for it. Let's say that C batch equal to new batch class. Now here, in order to execute it, I'm saying here database.execute batch. Similar to the what we write it in the while executing from the developer anonymous window, the same line of code. Same line of code, we will write it. Now here, I'm executing the batch. Now, in this case, I'm not saying whether it is a one time executed or a 2 times executed. I'm not giving any count. That means it might go into the more transaction or more batches it might execute it. Now, whenever you are executing the batch from the test classes, it has to be always within the, we have a 2 methods in the test class, which is called test.start method. Test.start method, and then we have a test.stop method. Start method and a stop method. Now you need to always write the actual Apex classes calling between the test.start test and test.stop test. What is this state? Start test and stop test. What will happen if I write it? Now, basically, this is only for the test classes. Whenever you are calling a batch class from the test class, or whenever you are inserting a more than 100 records, or more than 150 records, or more than 200 records, whenever you are inserting a lot of the records, and if you want to bypass the Garner limits, in that case, we will use the test.start test and test.stop test. What are the logic that I'm executing it? And if you know that that logic is going to execute multiple times, and you do not want to see the Garner limit issue from the test classes, then you will write that logic within the start test and stop test. Within the logic, you will write it. Now click on a save here. Now, once it is saved, let's go ahead and execute it. Run test. Run test. Now it failed. Why did it fail? What is the reason? Why did it fail? Now it is saying that attempt dereference null object. Cannot insert, update, auto lead, convert, execution after insert. What is happening here? I have written the logic inside the calculate total revenue test. When I am inserting the record, it is failing the record. What might be the reason?
2 triggers are getting.
Sorry?
The 2 triggers are getting conflicted.
here, whenever we are, I'm writing the logic for the batch class, but what I'm doing here, I'm inserting the lead record. As soon as wherever I insert a lead record, immediately my trigger gets executed. Immediately my trigger gets executed. Whether you are creating a record in the UI or whether you are creating in the any test class, it is need not to be similar to this test class, can be any test class. Wherever you are inserting the lead record, immediately this trigger will hit. So as soon as this trigger is hit, we have a something called as a custom settings. Now it saw here get instance of auto lead convert. Auto lead convert. No, we do not have that concept here. I'm not creating the custom setting here. I'm not creating the custom setting. Now, either you can create a custom setting here, similar to the what we have done previously, or else what you can do is you can say here, see all data. See all data equal to true. Now let's say here. Now let's see what will happen if I say here. See all data equal to true. Now click on it, run. What happened? It executed. What is this mean? See all data true is nothing but it says that yes, you are running the test class, but whenever the anything that is looking at the system level record, anything that it is looking at the system level record, that means there is some record on the custom setting. That means whenever I'm executing the test class, in case within the test class, if I do not find that record, go to the system level and cross verify what is the value or what is the record it has in the custom setting, get that data by looking at the system. So that means first look at whether the test class has the data or not. If it does not have the data, then we are opening up the access to the view all the data that is present inside the Salesforce. And this is very most of the times we use it, sometimes we do not use it. If you feel that the data is that keep on changing, it is not stabilized, it is keep on changing, it is not safe to view the see all data in the test classes, do not write. Otherwise, just simply write the see all data. Now for the when I'm writing the auto lead convert test class, I created a custom setting here. I created a custom setting. Now when I'm writing the test class for the calculate total revenue, I have not written the custom setting, but still I can able to go through the test classes. The reason is I have written on the top level, see all data equal to true. See all data equal to true. Now, any questions here? Okay, so let's move on.
Swapna.
Yes.
Now, if you do that, see all data is equal to true. Okay. Now, in the calculate total revenue, we are calculating all the data where, what is the query?
Let's go ahead and print that value. So what is it is saying here? Total revenue is there. So what I'm going to do is I'll print the system.debug. System.debug. Now I'm going to print the total revenue. I'm going to print the total revenue. Now here, let's say here total revenue, instead of some number, I'll just say here 1. So 100 means finally I should get the 100 records, around 100. If I'm getting more than 100 totals, then that's it. Now I'm going to execute it. Let me clear this all logs. Debug, clear the logs. And let's say here run test. Now it is executed. Let's open this and see the debug log. It is taking the everything, the data, it is taking all the data, which lines, 16th line. So here, where is the convert test? This is the 16th line. Basically, it is taking the all the data. So that's the reason I'm saying it. Don't use anything here, see all data, in case if you are not sure. Right? So basically, sometimes we use it, see all data, in case if you wanted to see the user record, or in case if you wanted to see the public group, or in case if you wanted to see the queues, or in case if you wanted to see the groups. In those scenarios, we use the see all data. Otherwise, we do not use the see all data. For records, we always has to create a record in the test classes. That is the best practice of testing it. Now, sometimes few developers, what they does is, instead of writing the static test method, what they write is, they usually write @is_test. They write it as a different way. No, most of the users write static test method void test. Either you can write it like this, or else you can write another way also, static void. Let's say I'm testing the test batch 1. Test batch 1. Now here, in case if you are not specifying the test method here, I'm not specifying the test method. If you do not specify the test method, we have to write the @is_test on top. @is_test on the top. Either you can write it in this way, or you can write it like this. Now what I'll do is, I'll copy this, whatever I have written inside the test method, and I'll paste it here. And I'll comment out this. I'll comment out this. Now let's execute it. Now it is executed perfectly fine. So test method can return in 2 ways. Test methods can return 2 ways. They can use directly another annotation which is called as a is_test, and below you can write it as a static void and the test class name. No need to write a test method here, or else you can write a static test method void test batch.
Swapna, this one what you have written, create leads, okay, that function, isn't it supposed to be inside test or start test? Or is it a best practice to put it inside start test or start test, or it should be outside?
You can put it. Right now I have the count of just 100. So that's the reason I'm using here, not the database. It says directly database dot. I'm using it here, but we have to always put it inside the test dot start.
Yeah,
test.
because I read it
As
somewhere,
we
like
know
whenever.
scenarios that we are going to see that. So we are going to learn
Okay.
step by step.
Okay.
Now, so let's see another one. So where we are going to implement a test class for the future method. Implement test class for the future method. Now, sometimes before going to the future method, like as we were discussing it, for example, you need to create a multiple object records. Now here I'm creating the lead record. Along with the lead record, also you need to create an account record. Also, you need to create a account record. That means I'm creating the lead here. Again, I'm creating the account record here, right? Again, I'm creating the account record. That means I'm creating the multiple records here. Sometimes in the real time. In the real time, whenever we are creating in the real time, the real time scenarios always we will be implementing the test classes or the classes which we are writing it. Classes which we are writing it for the, like wherever we have a relationship, like a lookup relationship, master detail relationship. For that, we will be writing like a checking the multiple conditions in one parent object, child object, and grandchild object. so many calculation we will be doing it. So in that case, what you have to do is you need to insert the multiple objects data. Multiple objects data. Simple example is here. So example here, when we have a campaign, okay. So from the campaign, we get a lead. So when the lead is converted to the opportunity and opportunity is getting closed, right? So this is some scenario is that in this case, I need to create an account record in the test class. I need to create a contact record in the test class. This is in the test class. If I have to test some logic, I need to create an account contact. Then I need to create a lead record. For this lead record, I need to create an opportunity, and then I need to create a product. So these all records I need to create it in the test class. Then only I will be able to cover the logic in the main Apex class. So whenever we have these many records, whenever I'm inserting it, whenever I'm inserting in the test class. So what is the best practice is whenever you are inserting this, then you have to put all this creation of the records within the test.start test. Test.start test. Within this test.start test, create whatever the objects that you wanted it. Create all these objects within this. Now, this is because to bypass the Garner limits. In case if you have a single object, that is fine. You can either write it, you can ignore it, that is fine. But whenever the Salesforce is going to cross verify, whenever Salesforce is going to run the change, check this logic, it is always expect that you need to write the insert or execution, whatever the main logic you are writing it has to be part of the within the start test and stop test. You will definitely see there is some differences in the percentage when you don't put a start test, test.start test and test.stop test. When you put the test.start test and test.stop test, there is a percentage wise, there is a differences you will see it. Differences you will see in the real time. So always put your logic, whatever you are inserting, it has to be within the account. Now that means whenever I'm calling here, this create new record, place this within the test.start test. Now, why I'm writing separately here the method in the real time, what we will do is, whenever we are creating any records, we will create a separate method for the each object. Separate method for the each object. If you have a multiple object creations, now each object, there will be a separate method for the creating the each object. So in order to create a lead, another method. In order to create an account, another method. In order to create a contact, another method. Like every method is a specific to the creating it. Now, if you observe this, now I'm creating the lead record here as well as I created here, right? I created here as well I created it. That means whenever I write a test class, I'm creating the lead record. That means I'm repeating the logic here. I'm repeating the logic. So I'm writing the lead creation here as well as I'm writing the lead creation here. Both the places I'm writing it, right? So that means I'm repeating the logic. Now in the real time, what we will do is we will not repeat this logic. We will not repeat the logic. What we will do is we will build a separate class which is called as a test factory or test utility. We will give a different names to it, test utility, or few members will say here utility test. Utility test factory, or they will create a separate factory for it. Factory is nothing but What is this basically? All the creation of objects, if you want to create, like in the Salesforce, we have 100 objects, or might be in real time we maximum use as a 20 objects. In real time, we use a 20 objects. Out of these 20 objects, somewhere you will be creating a record in the test class. Whenever you write a test class, you need to create a record, right? Because we will be querying, SQL query you will be doing it in some classes, right? We are looping through the record. That means every object is expecting some record from the UI. So in that case, at least 2 to 3 places you will be creating the same object. Instead of repeating that creation of the object, what we will do is we will create different methods in the test factory to create a object, That means what we will do is public class test factory. Now here we will be within this. Now first method is only specific to the account. Now single account creation. And second method will be multiple account creation. Now similarly, we have a single contact creation, and then multiple contact creation. That means we will be writing the only creation of the record. That means here I'll be writing the account.acc equal to new account. Now this is the method. Now this, let's say here public static. Let's say you can use the return type also. I'm using the return type account. And let's say here create account. Now this is only for creating an account. Within the create an account, I'll initialize the single account here, and then I'll pass all the data, whatever the acc.name, acc.rating, acc.industry, then finally I'll insert the single account. Now this is for single account creation. Similarly, we'll create a multiple account creation. Now, wherever in the test classes I need to create it, wherever in the test classes, if I wanted to create a record, then what I'll do is simply I'll call the create account, test factory.create account. So what will happen here? I'm not repeating the creation of the records or creation of the object. I'm not repeating in multiple places. So in the real time, we always use the factory or a utility, which is where all the creation of the records will be there in one place. All the creation of records will be there in one place. And we will call that method directly in the test class. Now here I'm calling the method of the same class. Instead of that, what I'll do is test factory dot create a lead, create a single lead, create a multiple lead. Like that, I'll be calling the different methods. And that everything we will write it into the test.start test and test.stop test. Always write the logic within that. And that's how we will implement it. Now let's go ahead and see one of the future method. Now we are clear how to write a test class for the normal Apex class. If it is a batch class, how to write it. If it is a trigger, how to write it. Now we have seen that. Now the next thing is how to write a test class for the feature method. So we have some feature method that are created on the hiring manager record. Let's see what is that. Now let me see what is the. Now I have a common helper. So common helper is the one where we have a mixed DMLs. Now here I'm going to. This is what I'm doing here in the common helper. First, I'm querying the user record based on the username and then user ID. If this is not null, then I'm going to is active equal to false. I'm going to make it as a false, and then I'll update the user to deactivate. Then I'm inserting the account. Now within the common helper, account is already, we are setting up the data in the here. That means I need not to pass any record here. For the account, I need not to pass any record because I'm creating a new one here. I'm creating a new one. So I need not to pass any account record. That is the first one. And then we are creating a HR record. So it is directly creating the HR record. So I need not to pass any data. That means not required to initialize the data for the account and hiring manager. Now let's go ahead and implement the test class for this. This is a future method. Let's create a new Apex class. And then Apex class test. Now here what I'm going to do is @istest. @istest, let's save it. Now once it is set, we will see here, run test button. Now next I'll use the static test method. Static test method void. Now I'm going to test the future method. Future method. Now here I'll say common helper dot, I'll call the mixed DML operation. Why mixed DML operation? Because the second method, what are this method is that this method is called from first one. So here from the mixed DML, I'm calling the second method. Now let's add this into the test.start test. And then test.stop test. Let's click on save. Now let's see running this test class. Run the test class. Now it is completed. Now we have a common helper. 100%. So it covered everything because I need not to create any record here. So what we are doing is, I'm not doing any SOQL query. I'm not doing any SOQL query. This user is automatically, it can query. Automatically, it can query and check the data that is available. So for that, you do not need it. For that, you do not need it. In case if you have to create a user record in case if you have to create a user record in test classes. For creation of user record, now let me show you that public, right? So now I have a public static void. I'll say here create a new user. Whenever you wanted to create a new user, whenever you wanted to get a new user, what is required for the user? In order to create a user, what is required? What is main important one that is required?
Username, email.
Username and
Email.
Profile.
Yeah,
email,
profile.
I can set it up. Profile, I need it. That means I need to query the profile. I need to query the profile. I need to query the profile based on the name. Based on the name, I need to query the profile. That means whenever we are creating a user, the first thing is that I need to do the SOQL query on the profile level. So in that method here, the first thing which I need is, I need a select ID from profile where name equal to, I'll say here, I need a system administrator. System administrator. Now, this is the query. Out of this query, I just need a ID. I don't need any other things. I just need a ID. That ID, I'm going to store it into the one variable. I am going to store that into the one variable. Directly, I can store it into the user level. So let's initialize the user. It is a test user equal to new user. Now I'll say here test user dot profile ID equal to test user dot profile ID equal to directly I can get the ID. So this will give the entire record. Out of this, I'm just interested in specific ID. Specific ID. So get that ID. Now after this, you have to use the test user dot first name equal to, let's say, sample. Test user dot, then we have to say last name equal to, let's say, test user, and test user dot email. These are some of them mandatory fields. Test user @gmail.com, and another mandatory field is username. Test user dot username. Username has to be, let's say, test user @gmail.com. Let's say plus. I need to add something here. So what I'll do is I'll take a system current time. System. We have a current time in milliseconds. So I'll take this. So what will happen whenever we are running this, it will create a new user with that particular time milliseconds. So always the username will be new. And then test user dot alias is we need it. Let's say here it is a test alias, and test user dot title equal to, let's say it is a test user. Now that's all. We do not have any other thing. Other things are by default, it is there. Now you have to insert a test user. This is also you need to call from within the test.start test, test.stop test. You need to call here. Say. Now in this case, if you want email to be matched here, you need to give the same email ID for the same email ID, you have to give it here. Right? So this is how we create a users. This is how we create a users.
Swapna?
Yeah.
Yeah, here we will get the profile details because the see all data is not true, right? So we can get the profile.
Yes. So let me put a debug point here. System dot. Instead of that, what I'll do is I'll take this as a separate query. And let me store this into the profile equal to system dot file. We are equal to system select dot ID from profile. Now click on a save. I'm going to put system dot debug. I'm printing the profile here. Let's see. It might fail, but what I need is whether it is printing the data or not. That's what we are going to check. So click on run. It is done here. Let's click on this. Now debug. What is happened? We are getting the profile record here. We are getting the profile record. Profile, you will get it. In test class, whenever you are writing the SOQL query, you will get the data. Whenever you are writing the SOQL query, because in here you are getting the SOQL query. Usually we do not write a SOQL query in the test classes. Usually we do not write a SOQL query in the test classes. So if you are writing the SOQL query, that means you are saying that to the system, go ahead and execute this SOQL query and get the data which is available in the system. Now, without a SOQL query, if you want to see the data, then you can say here, see all data. See all data equal to true. Now, let's say now let's click on here. Right. So this is how you create the data in the user level.
I didn't get that. Like, why we are taking that test user that profile ID? Like, what's the use of that profile ID?
This one,
No, like that query and everything.
this one.
Yes. What exactly we want in that?
Okay.
Like
What
for
is the
creation.
data? What is the data you will give here in the profile ID? Assume that you are creating a user. When you create a user here, what is the profile you will select it? There should be some existing profile should be there, right? You cannot create a profile in test class. You cannot create it. If you want to create it, go ahead and create it, but that is so complicated to create a profile. Now, ideally, what you will do, you will give this 18-digit ID or 15-digit ID, you will pass it here. That means hard-coded ID, you are passing it here. In order to create a user, you need a profile ID. So when you pass a hard-coded value here, it might change sandbox to sandbox. Right? Instead of that, what I'm writing is, I'm writing the SOQL query here. I'm writing the SOQL query. And when I write the SOQL query, I don't need entire data. Basically, I don't need a created date or I don't need last modified. I don't need all this data. So when I try to execute this, what will happen is it will give the complete profile record. It will give me the complete profile record. But I'm just interested on ID. I'm just interested on ID. So what I'm saying here, execute this query and get me the output of only ID. Get me the output of only the ID. So in that case, the output for this is ID. The output for this is ID. I'm storing that ID here. That means output for this one is 18-digit, whatever the unique ID is there, 18-digit or a 15-digit. I'll get that value and I'm storing it here.
Yeah. Like basically, like profile ID is, I mean, that field should be mandatory. So far to get that, like we are doing all these things from profile.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
No, like I'm asking that, like, okay, to create user, like profile ID should be mandatory. To create that ID, so we are querying from profile and
Yes.
we are fetching that ID. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Now let's move on. That is the future one. Now, similarly, we have a queueable. Similarly, we have a queueable. Queueable is also asynchronous. Queueable is also asynchronous. Let's see what all are there here. Edit, search. Let's say queueable. How many are there? So I have a hiring manager queueable. I have a hiring manager queueable. System.queueable. This is system.queueable. So here, this class is implemented for asynchronous queueable. What we are doing here is I'm creating a hiring manager record. I'm creating a hiring manager record. Now that means I need not to pass any data from the test class. I need not to pass any data from the test class. Now, after that, once it is done, then I'm going to the position queueable. This is a position queueable class. I'm calling the another queueable class, file open resource. This class is which we have already implemented, right? So what we are doing is we have a hiring manager queueable and a position queueable. From the hiring manager queueable, I'm creating the hiring manager and I'm calling the another queueable method, queueable class, in order to create a position object. That means I'm creating the hiring manager record, and then I'm creating the related position record for that particular hiring manager. Hiring manager record. Here, this is the first I'm creating the hiring manager, then I'm creating the position. Oh. So I'm creating the position object. Now in this case, how to write a test class? Now, do we have to pass the record here or we can directly call the class? Do I need to create a record in the test class?
No.
No,
Sorry,
directly call.
directly I can call it. So let's see that. Let's go ahead and create a test class. File, new Apex class, hiring manager queueable test. Now let's say here @is test, @is test. Now we are going to call the static test method void. Let's say test queueable method. Now within this, I'll directly call this. I need not to pass any record. Basically, it is not expecting. Whatever the class is there, I need to initialize that class. Let's say HR queueable, new. This class, I'm initializing the class here. Then within the class, we have a method called execute. So I need to call that method HR queueable dot execute. Now, while calling the execute, do I need to pass anything here? We have something called queueable context. The parameter is there. So what I'll do is from the test class, I can just pass the null. I can just pass the null value. Now let's go ahead and execute this. What is the value? HR queueable. Now let's say perfect. So let's go ahead and execute it, run test. It failed. What is the problem? It failed. Why did it fail? DML exception, queueable, handler. Okay, I have a trigger. Pick list value, it is expecting location. I have a trigger here, execution of after insert. Let's do one thing, sync HR record. So let's go to this sync HR record, trigger. Location name is a bad value. Okay, so that means it is expecting the location. File open resource. Now we have a trigger on this. Let's say this is the trigger. Now we are inserting the record. This is after update. This is the insert. In the insert, we are calling the another class. what it is saying that location name. Location name is a bad value. What is the location name that we have at the object level? Now here, it is taking the location name from the hiring manager. So recruiter, what are the values are available for the recruiter? Let's go to the recruiter, fields and relationship. Now here I'm going to check location name. For this location name, okay, what I'll do is I'll uncheck this particular one, restrict the pick list values to the value defined, click on save. Okay, now I'm going to execute my test class. Now it has been executed, right? So HM Queueable, all 100%, and position, all reports, it has been executed. Now, what is the change that I have done it for that is, it was giving me the, what is the error it was giving me? It was giving me the error which is called as a bad value for restricted pick list. Bad value for restricted pick list. I have a something value differently, Hyderabad, right? HYDERA. So there is some spelling mistake. Now, because of that, it is not matching with the existing. It is not matching with the existing. Now, what I have done is restrict the pick list values to the, that means if there is no pick list value here, do not restrict anything. If there is, apart from these values, any other values are there, do not restrict it. Let the system to allow inserting the data. So that's how I'm inserting. Either you can do here this one, or else let's click on this. Now I'll enable back. I'll click on enable, click on save. It's not required. Just a second. So I'll enable the restrict pick list to the values, click on a save, and enable back to the original value. And what I'll do is I'll pass the exact value there. Exact value here instead of Hyderabad. So I'm passing the correct value here. Now I can run the test class. It is successful. So whenever the pick list values are not matching, it will say that bad value. It will say bad value. So now if we go back to the Apex classes, now let's go ahead and execute this. Click on estimates. Now still it is showing the 14%. Because of maybe there is a very less code is there. So that's the reason it is still thinking 14%. Now let me refresh again. Now still it is thinking 14%. Fine. So like this, we will be reaching to the 75%. Now here, let me add test.start test. And test.stop test. Test.stop test. Now click on save. Now, so any class, you take any class, whether it is a trigger or whether it is a batch Apex, whether it is a queueable or whether it is a future method, anything you take it. First, analyze the class. First, analyze the class. Whether is it expecting any record from the test class. If it is expecting any record from the test class, go ahead and pass the record. That means from the test class, create a records in the test class and then pass it to the main class. If it is not expecting any records, if it is not expecting any records, then don't pass anything. If it is not expected, do not pass anything.
Swapna?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, to execute a queueable method, we use system.enqueueJob and then the instance of the class, right?
System.enqueueJob is necessary when you are calling another queueable job from the queueable. Because why we use the enqueue job is to get the job ID, But my test classes, I do not need a job ID. For my test classes,
Okay.
I do not need any job ID. It's not required. Job ID for the real time. For the test classes, it is not required.
Okay.
And Visualforce is also same thing. This is the homework. This is the homework. Now, last time we have returned some show all accounts. Right, so there is some Visualforce which we have written show all accounts. If you click on a preview, it was showing all the account details, here. For this, we have written the Apex class. For this, we have written the Apex class. Now go to this Apex class. What is this Apex class is doing? It is doing a query. That means it is expecting a record. It is expecting a record. Now, what you need to do from the test class is you need to create at least one record from the test class. Do it more than 10 records. Do it like around 20 records. Do it 20 records. Create 20 records of the account. Now pass that 20 record. Once it is created, from the test method, call that particular method and then call this class. Because here the query which we are doing in the constructor. So when you do not have any logic in the class, when you have only the constructor, you need not to do anything. You just need to initialize the class. That's it. You just need to initialize the class. That means what you will be writing it. Now in the class, that means in the test class, this is a homework. In the test class, what you will be writing, public class. Now let's assume that this is the class name. Show all account records test. Show all account records test. And here within this, you will be writing the static test method. And let's say test account or a VF account. Test VF account. Within this, first what you need to do is you need to call another method. That method is create a account records. Create at least 20 account records. Create 20 account records. So for this, you will be calling the another method. Then once you done, that means, for example, assume that you have already created a method to insert a 20 account records. Let's say that method name is create account records. Method name is create account records. Now, once this is called, then what you have to do is you have to invoke the controller class. What are the controller class is there? That controller class you need to invoke. How can you invoke? So copy that class name and initialize it here. Let's say ACC controllers equal to new that's it. This is how you will invoke the controller classes. This is how you will invoke the controller classes. So this is the homework. Homework is create a test class for the Visualforce controllers. If you do not have any controller, implement the Visualforce controller and then write the test class. That's all for today. I'll paste you the trial head.